Hello, YouTube. I'm back. I know. 3 in a day. Goodness. Yeah. Well, I'm making this one because I wanted to play the Texas governor's debate for you. Beto O'Rourke and piece of crap Greg Abbott. So, let's get into it. This might be a long one.
Anchor Steve Spriester, my colleague at KXAN, anchor Sally
Let's see what crap Greg Abbott says.
Hernandez, and from the Dallas Morning News, political writer Gromer Jeffers. Candidates, let's briefly go over the rules for tonight. Each candidate will have 60 seconds for each question. If there are follow-ups, candidates will then have 30 seconds, and there will be up to 30 seconds allowed for any rebuttals. At the end of the debate, each candidate will have 30 seconds for closing statements, and when your time is up, you're going to hear this bell. And with that, let's get started. I'm going to send it over to my colleague Sally with the first question.
Britt, thank you. And again, thank you both for being here tonight. I can tell it's going to be an exciting night. I've got a lot of questions to ask you both, but I just want to remind you, please pay attention to the time cues. This way, you're not talking over each other, and I don't have to interrupt you, and our viewers at home can hear your answers tonight. Let's get to it. Immigration. Immigration issues are especially relevant here in the Rio Grande Valley. For years, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has ranked it as the #1 area for migrants crossing illegally along the entire southwestern border. Many communities here have suffered enormous monetary costs. Governor Abbott, let's start with you, and you have 60 seconds with this question. What would you do to alleviate the financial burden placed on these communities?
We've been working to respond to the disaster caused by the Biden administration that has caused such an economic burden on these communities. Farms and ranches are run over, communities are disrupted, homes that are invaded. Remember this, just 2 years ago, we had one of the safest borders in decades, but under the Biden administration, we had more people coming across the border than ever in the history of our country. Texas has responded by making sure that we have the National Guard and DPS deployed, where they're making arrests and turning back illegal immigrants, as well as what we're doing to help local communities by busing them from the area where Border Patrol is dropping them off to sanctuary cities in northeastern parts of the country. But what we're doing is making sure that we are keeping our communities safe, and this is completely different than the way things would be under Beto, because he said months ago, there's no problem on the border. He said that he would reduce immigration enforcement. He even said that 95% of people come across the border illegally, he would allow to stay.
Okay, Mr. O'Rourke, I want to give you a chance to respond. And let me just repeat the question first for our viewers and for you. What would you do to alleviate the financial burden placed on border communities related to migrants crossing over? 60 seconds, please.
What we just heard from the governor is what we are likely to hear over the course of this debate. He's going to blame people like President Biden. He's going to try to lie about my record, and he's going to distract from his failures, whether it's his failure to keep the lights on in the grid, his failure to address school shootings, or his failure in immigration. We are 8 years into his time as governor.
You're right, Beto. He does fail at addressing school shootings. School shootings are serious. But Abbott just takes them as they happen, so what? Abbott, you.
And this is what we have on our border. In fact, $4 billion into Operation Lone Star. We're seeing not fewer, but more encounters at our border right now. What we need is a safe, legal, orderly path for anyone who wants to come here to work, to join family, or to seek asylum. If you come to this country, we expect you to follow the law. But on our side, we're going to make sure that our laws reflect our values and our interests. And I'm going to work with local leaders, Republicans and Democrats alike, to make sure that we have a Texas-based guest worker program to alleviate shortages that we have in our state for labor demands and reduce inflation and address supply chain issues as well.
Thank you. Governor Abbott, you just heard your opponent talk about Operation Lone Star, and I have a follow-up question about that. About $4 billion in state funds has been directed to the Operation Lone Star Border Security Initiative. The program has seen its funding increase as recently as this past July. So the question, Governor, and 30 seconds if you can to answer this, should more money be allocated towards Operation Lone Star? And if so, Governor, how much?
Well, candidly, we shouldn't have to
30 seconds.
allocate any money for it because this is all because of Joe Biden's failure to do the president's job to secure the border. We're only having to do that because of Joe Biden's failure and because it would be the same pathway that Beto would take us down. Speaking of which, he talked about this guest worker program. He could have done that had he won the race for the Senate or won the race for president. That's not a job for governor. The job of governor is to have to deal with the chaos caused by the Biden administration and its open border policies that Beto would replicate.
What we have is chaos thanks to Governor Abbott right now.
Okay, let me give you 15 seconds to answer the question for me.
Abbott is the king of chaos, Beto.
How much money should be going toward Operation Lone Star?
And I'm telling you, $0 should be going to Operation Lone Star, and that's what it would be if we had a president who was enforcing the immigration laws of the United States of America.
Mr. Work, I want to go over to you 30 seconds for this question. It's the same one. Should more money be allocated towards Operation Lone Star?
No, it's clearly failed. The numbers are in. We're seeing not fewer but more engagements at our border. When the governor spent $4 billion of our tax dollars on what has turned out to be political theater for his political career, he promised us that it would deter people from coming to this country. We've only seen more people come. Now they get a bus ride to Chicago or Washington, D.C. or New York. We don't need any more stunts. We need solutions. We need those coming here to follow our laws. We need to make sure our laws follow our values.
Thank you,
Sally, can I
Mr.
respond to that, please?
Work. I'll give you 15 seconds, Governor.
Sure. So these are efforts to protect our state. There is a record amount of fentanyl coming across the border. This deadly. Texas law enforcement has seized enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire country. And this is because of Joe Biden's
Thank you,
policies.
Governor Abbott. I assure you we have a lot of questions, a lot of topics to get to, and Steve has the next one.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you, gentlemen, for both being here tonight. Mr. O'Rourke, I want to continue with the immigration topic now. You've criticized the deployment of National Guard troops to the border. Here's a clip of you speaking at a March rally in College Station.
There are Guard members from Texas A&M who are on the border right now in Zapata, in Webb, and Hidalgo counties to go be part of a solution in search of a problem.
A solution in search of a problem. More recently, you told the Houston Chronicle that you will put some troops on the border as governor. In 60 seconds, can you explain why your view on deploying troops...
Hey. I'm busy. Going over the debate. The Texas governor debate. Okay. Okay, have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Sorry about that.
has seemingly changed when it comes to the border?
It hasn't. I've actually been to Zapata and Webb and Maverick counties and listened to these members of the Guard who had less than a week to say goodbye to their families and to their careers and into their communities to be part of the governor's political theater. Those aren't my words. Those are their words. So far, we've lost the lives of 8 Guard members. 4 of them have taken their lives, and 4 of them have died in questionable circumstances, none of whom, by the way, was killed by anybody coming in to this country. These Guard members say they have no powers to arrest or detain anybody. 10,000 Guard members, $4 billion, and it's been a complete failure, much as everything that the governor has done has been a failure for this state. What we need are solutions, not more stunts. Where we can have a strategic deployment on a voluntary basis for Guard members, let's do that. I've been consistent on that. Where we can partner with local sheriffs, with DPS troopers, let's do that. But we need to work on things like a Texas-based guest worker program to meet labor needs in our communities and ensure that our laws match our values.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor, I want to talk to you. You talked about migrants and the busing of migrants. Many migrant advocates and Democratic elected officials have expressed concerns about the treatment of migrants being bused from Texas to other states and cities. Here's New York Mayor Eric Adams talking about that just last week.
And when we reached out to Governor Abbott and stated, can we coordinate? Can we identify, who's traveling here, and we don't have to guess this? They refused to do so.
The White House has called this a political stunt. Governor Abbott, is this a political stunt? And has there been coordination with the states and cities these migrants are being taken to? And if not, why not? You have 60 seconds, sir.
So this operation began after a meeting with local officials, sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs, and county judges, where they were overrun with the number of migrants that Border Patrol had dumped into their tiny little communities. They needed relief, and busing was one of the ways of providing them relief, and thus began the process of busing the migrants to cities that self-identified as sanctuary cities. Mayor Adams has never called my office, never talked to anybody in my administration, and so what he's saying is just flat out false. There has been communication between non-governmental organizations in Texas as well as the ultimate location, whether it be Washington, D.C. or New York. But going back to what Beto said, what you showed on video earlier was what happens throughout this entire campaign, where Beto continues to flip-flop on issue after issue after issue. He's flip-flopped on the border issue. He's flip-flopped on the energy issue, such as energy jobs and the Green New Deal. He's flip-flopped on defunding the police. Whether it's one issue or another, he keeps changing positions.
I want to be clear, though. You say that Mayor Adams has never called your office.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, I want to follow up on this. You've called the busing of migrants a political stunt as well. Why shouldn't sanctuary cities share the burden of what's happening on the Texas border? You have 30 seconds.
Look, I live on the border. No one cares more about the security and safety of the border than those who are raising our children there. I also serve as a city council member there. And in my time working with law enforcement, working with state and federal partners, we were able to help make El Paso, Texas, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. It's because we were looking at solutions instead of these stunts. I just want to remind everyone, this guy's been governor for 8 years, and this is where we are today. Some of the worst levels of engagement, encounters, fentanyl trafficking, and human smuggling that we've seen. That's the result of stunts instead of solutions.
Stick to the time, please. Thank you.
Steve, I've got to respond to what he just said.
See what I mean? Under Abbott's administration, things have only gotten worse. School shootings have been getting worse. So, I'm going to leave a comment here. Abbott, do something about school shootings. Abbott, you don't care about children getting shot in schools, you piece of crap. Oh, right. Boom!
Absolutely. I'll give you 15 seconds.
He mentioned El Paso. The fact of the matter is that El Paso mayor, a Democrat, the El Paso City Council, Democrats, they are now busing more people than the state of Texas is busing. And he's not calling them out for them busing people to other
Completely different program. It is apples to oranges. And I'll tell you, this hateful rhetoric, this treating human beings as political pawns, talking about invasions in Texas, Texans defending themselves, that's how people get killed at the Walmart in El Paso. The gentleman in Hudspeth that we just learned about yesterday, this is incredibly dangerous for Texas and is not reflective of our values.
Okay, Governor, I want to give you 30 seconds to respond to those charges.
Sure.
We all know that because of all the school shootings that are happening in the state of Texas are because of Abbott. I follow a lot of states. I don't hear as much, I haven't heard a lot of much shootings is coming out of Texas. This tells me that the governor of Texas is planning them. Oh, this guy pisses me off.
I mean, it's clear, that Beto just wants to perpetuate the open border policies and
Abbott? I don't even know what you're talking about.
characterize exactly what's going on. He refuses to acknowledge that the city of El Paso, because they are so overwhelmed by Joe Biden's open border policies, they too are having to bust migrants out of their communities because they
Quit freaking blaming Biden!
have no way of keeping them there. That's what we're trying to do to help our local
You need to take responsibility! We know you're a big old pile of problems.
communities and make sure that we're going to lighten the load.
No one is for open borders, not the least of us who actually live on the borders. This is the kind of stunt that you get from Greg Abbott. We need solutions right now.
I want to go to a follow-up for you, Governor Abbott,
Sure.
and it's on the busing question. These migrants are being sent to states and cities with Democratic leadership. Why aren't these migrants being sent to so-called sanctuary cities in Republican-led states like New Orleans or Metro Atlanta? You have 30 seconds.
So again, because these cities of New York and Washington, D.C. and Chicago are so large and have the infrastructure that's available, they have the capability of accommodating the number of migrants that are being sent better than these other cities that you talked about. There will be other cities in the future that also will be on the receiving end of migrants, because we will continue to have to move migrants because Joe Biden continues to allow more illegal immigrants to come into the state of Texas.
Thank you, Governor. My colleague Gromer Jeffers has the next question.
Thank you, Steve, and hello, gentlemen. Good to see you both.
You too, Roman.
Let's pivot now to the topic of gun control. Following the Uvalde massacre, many community members made this one specific plea. Here's one student who survived the shooting at Robb Elementary.
You have to be 21 to buy a case of beer, but an 18-year-old bought a gun to kill kids. That does not make sense.
To be clear, that's a call to raise the age limit to buy an AR-15 style weapon from 18 to 21. A Republican governor in Florida broke with the NRA to sign this into law after the Parkland mass shooting. Governor Abbott, you say this can't be done in Texas. Mr. O'Rourke, you say it will be done if you're elected. Can you please explain your positions? Let's start with you, Governor Abbott. You have 60 seconds.
First, there's no reason why a little girl like that should ever have to say anything like that. There's a reason why these parents are angry, and they're rightfully angry, and I can feel their pain. No parent should lose a child, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that does not happen.
No parent should ever feel what it's like to lose a child, but yet you cause it? Abbott, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. We all know that the shootings at the school, especially the Robb Elementary one, were because of you. Yeah, you. They were because of you. Hypocrisy right here. We all know Abbott planned that shooting. We know. I'm not living in Texas, but I wanted to watch this because I know how stupid this guy is. Abbott's just kind of hiding his secret. Up. Let's see. No parents ever feel what they like to lose a child. Blah, blah, blah. You know. Abbott, you're the one who plans this. You're just saying some you're against. You're for parents losing children. You're a freaking killer.
We want to end school shootings, but we can.
We want to end school shootings? Then why'd you plan them? Every school shooting only makes things worse.
Not do that by making false promises. It's a false promise to suggest that we can pass a law that will be upheld by the Constitution to raise the age. And here's
See, this is what you get with Republican governors.
why. The most recent Federal Court of Appeals decision on this particular issue said that it was unconstitutional for a state to raise the age from 18 to 21 for a person to buy an AR-15. So So any attempt to try to raise the age is going to be met with it being overturned. So we need to get to the bottom of what is really ailing our communities, and that is the mental health that is leading people to engage in school shootings. And Texas is already addressing that.
Just a quick follow-up, Governor. Take 15 seconds to answer this. You're a former Attorney General. You've never shied away from a legal fight. Are you against this proposal because you feel like it's unconstitutional, or you believe that it's unnecessary? You personally believe that it's unnecessary?
Purely from a legal position, based upon what that Court of Appeals decision ruled, and importantly, based upon what the Supreme Court decision said in a June opinion that changed the way that Parkland case was determined. I know how the Parkland case was determined. Florida is going to have its law overturned because of this new Supreme Court decision.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, in 60 seconds, can you please explain your position on raising the age limit to purchase AR-15 style weapons?
First of all, I'm going
60 seconds.
to follow the lead of those families from Uvalde. That's who I'm doing this for. In fact, many of them drove more than 5 hours, 280 miles to be here today, even though they're not allowed in this theater because of the governor's conditions, because they want to hold him accountable, because it's been 18...
Yeah, Abbott, we are going to hold you accountable. We are going to hold you accountable, Abbott. We know you planned that Robb Elementary School shooting. We know you did it. You're going to be held accountable for that. But you'll all be like, no, I didn't do it. Did it. You know you did it. Come on! Think about it! Never seen a governor even as dumb as him right here.
Weeks since their kids have been killed, and not a thing has changed in this state to make it any less likely that any other child will meet the same fate. All we need is action. The only person standing in our way is the governor of the state of Texas. In Florida, after the Parkland shootings, it was 23 days for that Republican governor to raise the age. And in those states where the age has been raised, mass shootings are down 80%. So yes, we can raise the age to 21. And as governor, I'll bring Republicans and Democrats around the table to do that. After all of these mass shootings, this governor has done nothing except make it easier for people who should not have a firearm to carry them publicly, and this is what we get as a result. We need change.
Told you he planned them!
The last time you ran for governor, we asked you about red flag laws, and those are laws which could stop an individual with potential intention to harm others from purchasing a gun. And you said about that, quote, "I would not support a red flag law that would take guns away from people without due process." Now, a lot has happened in those 4 years. Are you open to implementing red flag laws today? You have 30 seconds.
Well, let me tell you what I support and I don't support. What I support is making it a felony for someone to lie on a background check. I signed that into law last year. I approve of expanding background checks to include juvenile records. Also approve of making it a crime for criminal gangs to buy or to possess a gun. But I'm still against red flag laws for the reason that it would deny a lawful Texas gun owner their constitutional right to due process.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, you have been criticized at times for your positions on gun control, including this comment you made in 2019 while running for president.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
But in February, you told reporters in Tyler that you were, quote, not interested in taking anything away from anyone. So which is it, Mr. O'Rourke? Are you for confiscating AR-15 style weapons or not? You have 30 seconds.
After losing 23 of my neighbors to somebody armed with a weapon of war, after talking to these families who could only identify their children in Uvalde by the shoes that they were wearing, it's clear to me that the only place that an AR-15 or an AK-47 makes sense is on a battlefield. But as governor of the state of Texas, I need to be focused on what we can get done. Raising the minimum age of purchase to 21, we can get that done. A red flag law, we'll get that done. Universal background checks, we will get that done. We'll make progress and take action where this governor has failed.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. So just to be clear,
on everything.
Yes or no, are you for confiscating AR-15 style weapons?
I'm for making sure that we make progress. Those families that I was just with from Uvalde want us to take action. This is the common ground. I've listened to Republicans and Democrats alike on this. We can agree on this much. raise the age to 21,
Okay.
red flag law, and universal
Thank you,
background check.
Mr. O'Rourke. Steve has the next question.
Thank you, Gromer. We want to focus in now more on the Uvalde shooting. A gunman killed 19 children and 2 adults. Its effects, though, go far beyond Uvalde. Mr. O'Rourke, I want you to speak to parents of victims and really all parents statewide worried about their children's safety at school. What would you do if elected to prevent this from happening again? You have 60 seconds.
Just like you, I'm a parent. With Amy, we're raising Ulysses and Molly and Henry in El Paso, and we are well aware that it's been 18 weeks, and this governor has not lifted a finger to make it any less likely that any of our kids will meet that same fate. We need
Abbott, you're a lazy son of a gun.
change. The governor just talked about mental health care. We are dead last in the nation when it comes to mental health care access, and he took $211 million from the mental health care budget of the state of Texas. He'll talk about police funding. He failed to fund the police radios in Uvalde, even when that police department asked for them. And you know what? Those radios failed on that day. I want every parent out there to know that the lives of your children are more important to me than the NRA or any special interest or any other political consideration. I will prioritize them ahead of everything else, and we will take action, and we will make progress. We'll bring Republicans, Democrats, independents alike together, and we'll get the job done where this governor has failed to do so.
Governor Abbott, to you now. The families of the victims, the Uvalde School District, the Uvalde County Commissioners, the Uvalde City Council all asked for you to call a special session in the wake of the tragedy. You did not, despite calling them on several other issues in the past. Can you explain why you didn't call a special session? You have 60 seconds.
I will, but I must first respond to what we have to respond to every single day. Beto's campaign continues to spew lies and false information. He said 2 things that are completely false. He said that we're last in mental health care. The fact of the matter is, Texas is now 27th in mental health care because of funding that I provided. Texas has provided more than $25 billion for mental health care in the last 3 sessions. He also said that we did not fund police radios in Uvalde. Completely false. We provided $1.6 million for Uvalde alone for their police radio systems since I've been governor. So Beto continues to provide false information. What I want to make sure that the leaders in Uvalde know is, as we've shown, we don't need to call a special session in order to take action. For 6 consecutive days after the shooting took place, I issued directives to make schools safer and to respond to the emergency in Uvalde. And then I remain engaged with the mayor, with the local leaders.
It could have been worse. That's what you told those families. That's what you told that community. And you've done nothing to help them.
Mr. O'Rourke,
Mr. Governor,
we're not...
On your stupidity, Greg.
Done with this topic yet, so you will have your say. But Governor, I want to follow up with you. There's a regular session coming up in January. Will you make school safety an emergency item for lawmakers when they meet? You have 15 seconds.
Absolutely. Just like I did in past sessions. This is going to be an emergency item. Over the summer, I requested special legislative committees to begin working already so that they will have ready when we begin the session to address Uvalde, but the broader-based issue across the entire state of Texas,
it's an emergency,
as you mentioned earlier.
Session now. Why wait till the next year?
Mr. O'Rourke, a question for you now.
Gun violence is a leading cause of death for children and teenagers in this state. Why are you waiting to save lives?
We need to move on. We've had a lot of topics we want to get to, but we want to stay on Uvalde because there's still some questions that we have here. So I appreciate you staying within your time. Mr. O'Rourke, Uvalde School District Police Chief Peter Arredondo, who led the initial law enforcement response at Robb Elementary, was fired. Is there anyone else who should be held accountable for the mistakes made in that hallway in Robb Elementary that day? You have 30 seconds.
The governor said it himself in an interview to Gromer Jeffers last month. There should be accountability up and down the ballot, beginning with Greg Abbott. I think he has lost the right to serve this state in the most important position of public trust. Furthermore, we know that there were 91 DPS troopers for whom he is responsible who were on the other side of an unlocked door, some for more than 70 minutes. There is a complete failure to hold people responsible accountable. Those families still do not have justice. As governor, I will make it my priority.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor, now to you.
There was Go ahead.
I'll give you 15 seconds if you want to respond to what
Well,
he said.
I was going to answer the question I thought you were going to ask me. But
I've got another question
Okay.
for you. Right after the shooting, you said this.
But the reality is, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse.
It could have been worse. You heard.
It could have been worse. You're right. We know you planned it, Greg. We know you planned it. I live in California, but I follow you, Abbott, because I want to hear of all the bull crap you say. I hope people in the state of Texas know that Abbott planned that shooting. He planned it. There's no question. It ain't no, what if, he planned it, period.
Mr. O'Rourke, bring it up. You later said you were misled about what happened inside Robb Elementary. If my memory serves me right, that was the day after. So we were just moments after what had happened. Who misled you, and will they be held accountable? You have 30 seconds.
Everyone in that briefing room that provided me the information about what law enforcement did, what that comment was based upon was information by law enforcement about all the children in all the other classrooms that they evacuated during the time when the shooter was on the campus. What they did not tell me at the time, however, was that there were dozens, if not more, of other law enforcement that were hanging around in the hallway for over an hour without engaging in the Columbine protocol and going in and immediately removing that shooter, which is what they were supposed to do. And because they failed to do that, there does need to be accountability, not just for Pete Arredondo, but also for local law enforcement. DPS officers are under investigation as we speak right now. There needs to be accountability for law enforcement at every level for not following the Columbine protocol.
You will be sure to hold DPS troopers accountable.
Yes,
as governor.
in a word, yes. But second, there are at least 7 who are under investigation as we speak right now, 2 of whom are on suspension as we speak right now. And so I expect DPS officers and law enforcement across the state to follow the Columbine protocol.
Governor, the buck stops on your desk. You blame everyone else. You blame Joe Biden for other issues.
We need to move on.
You blame
we need to move
people
on
for
topics,
misleading
and
you.
actually,
You are misleading this state.
Sally will ask the next question.
I do, and I think you're both going to want to talk about this next topic. It's the topic of abortion. A recent Next Star, Emerson College, and the Hill poll shows more than half of those polled say they are more likely to vote in this election because of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. You both are very outspoken on this issue, but what I want to do tonight is really drill down on specifics. Governor Abbott, you recently sat down with my friend Gromer over here, and you talked about what women can do if they are victims of rape or incest.
Let's see what kind of crap Greg Abbott says about it. Let's see all the lies this delusional son of a gun says.
And here's a clip of that interview.
Those victims can access health care immediately as well as to report it. Both of those have very meaningful consequences. By accessing health care immediately, they can get the Plan B pill that can prevent a pregnancy from occurring in the first place.
Some healthcare advocates say emergency contraception like Plan B is often unavailable, or it's too costly for women to afford. And trauma could prevent them from taking emergency contraception in the time frame that it's effective. So, Governor, we're going to start with you. With these concerns that I just laid out, is emergency contraception a viable alternative to abortion for victims of rape and incest? And you have 60 seconds, sir.
So to directly answer the topics that you raised, on the availability of it, it's incumbent upon the state of Texas to make sure that it is readily available. For those who are victims of sexual assault or survivors of sexual assault, the state of Texas pays for that, whether it be at a hospital, at a clinic, or for someone who gets a prescription because of it. And so not only should be readily available, but the state of Texas is going to pay for it to make sure that it is available for them.
But Governor, 30 seconds, or I'll give you 30 seconds to answer this one. I still want to know, is Plan B the alternative when it comes to somebody who is pregnant from rape or incest?
Well, it depends on what you mean by alternative. An alternative, obviously, is to do what we can to assist and aid the victim, and that is to help get them medical assistance that they need and the care that they need, but also to know what their options are. They're going to know that the state, through our Alternatives to Abortion program, provides living assistance, baby supplies, all kinds of things that can help them. Also, we've increased funding for prenatal and postpartum care.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, we're going to stay on the topic of abortion here. Governor Abbott has said that you support abortion on demand. Do you support any limit on when a woman can't have an abortion? In 60 seconds for this question.
This election is about reproductive freedom. If you care about this, you need to turn out and vote. I will fight to make sure that every woman in Texas can make her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care.
God bless
And
you,
I will
Beto.
work with the legislature and my fellow Texans to return us to the standard that Texas women won in the first place, Roe versus Wade. That's the standard that answers your question. But I've got to respond to this silliness on Plan B, this comment he made about eliminating rape in the state of Texas. This is an attack on women. More women have been raped in the state of Texas than any other state. There are 3,000 untested rape kits at DPS headquarters, meaning that our ability to bring rapists to justice has declined by half on this governor's watch. And it's arguable that rapists enjoy more victims because more rights under Greg Abbott than their victims do, because they can sue the families of their victims if they help their victim get an abortion and be able to win a $10,000 bounty in the process.
Mr. O'Rourke, I'll give you a chance to respond, Governor. 30 seconds.
So once again, I'm going to be doing this a lot. I have to point out a misstatement by Beto. I signed a law that eliminated the rape kit test backlog at the Texas Department of Public Safety. As it concerns abortion, listen, Beto's position is the most extreme because he not only supports abortion of a fully developed child to the very last second before birth, he's even against providing medical care for a baby who survives an abortion. He is for unlimited abortion at taxpayer expense.
That's not
Mr.
true.
O'Rourke, please,
It's
30
completely a
seconds to
lie.
respond.
I never said that, and no one thinks that in the state of Texas. He's saying this because he signed the most extreme abortion ban in America. No exception for rape, no exception for incest. It begins at conception, and it's taking place in a state that is at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis, thanks to Greg Abbott, 3 times as deadly for black women. I will fight to make sure that every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care. That's what most of us, Republicans and Democrats in this state, believe.
Mr. O'Rourke, just in 15 seconds, is there a limit that you support on women getting an abortion?
That limit was decided in 1973 through a victory that Jane Roe and Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington won before an all-male United States Supreme Court. I want us to return to that. It was the law of the land for nearly 50 years until we had the most extreme abortion ban in the country.
Gromer has the next question.
Thanks, Sally. Let's move to law enforcement. Mr. O'Rourke, you have been accused by Governor Abbott of supporting efforts to defund police. He may have mentioned it tonight, actually. Here's a chance for you to set the record straight. Do you support measures to defund police? You have 60 seconds.
Of course I don't, and no one does. But let's look at my record. I think that's the best thing to look at, and then we'll look at the governors. On the El Paso City Council, I raised police salaries 12% in the 6 years that I served there. In Congress, I funded $11 billion to local and state law enforcement across this country, including in Texas. I want to fund law enforcement, fund training so that everyone is treated equally under the law, and I want there to be accountability for when those officers abuse the public trust. But let's look at what Greg Abbott's done. When police and law enforcement begged him not to sign permitless carry, because it allows anyone to carry a gun in public without a background check, he turned his back on them, did it anyhow. Homicides have gone up 50%, and we now have gun violence as the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in this state.
That's because of you, Greg Abbott. I've said it millions of times before. I'm going to say it again. You're the one why millions of people are dying in Texas. God darn it! Yeah, I'm not a liar. I'm just saying a fact. Greg Abbott hates the state of Texas. He hates all the Texans. If all the people want to be living in Texas, you better rethink yourselves. That's the question that you better be thinking about. Better be thinking about it right after this video ends. People who want to live in Texas, you better rethink yourself. Why? That's your homework from me.
When the Uvalde Police Department asked for funding, he turned his back on them. He is not doing what keeps us safe. That's why you see the level of rape, violent crime, and homicide up on Greg Abbott's watch.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. O'Rourke. Can you take 15 seconds to answer this? After the summer of 2020, did you voice support for cities that cut their police budgets? Minneapolis comes to mind. Did you support those efforts?
What I supported and what I continue to support is full funding for law enforcement, full funding that includes training to ensure that we're treating everyone equally under the law, and we definitely need accountability and justice. If someone abuses the power of life and death over our fellow citizens, without accountability, we lose the ability to keep our communities safe.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor Abbott, you have spoken about the growing crime in Texas in your commercials and on the campaign trail. You've been governor for more than 7 years. So why is crime up? Don't you bear some of the responsibility for it?
So I'll fully answer that question. Let me first...
You have 60 seconds, by the way.
Let me reply, and that is, once again, Beto misleads by saying that we denied Uvalde Police Department any money. We've answered every call they've ever made to make sure they have whatever funding they need. And Beto clearly said that in response to Minneapolis, that he supports their idea of defunding and dismantling the police. And I got to add this. He didn't say a word to criticize the city of Austin that defunded their police by more than $100 million. The law I passed will prevent any city from defunding the police because in Texas, we support our law enforcement officers, period. The reason why there's been a rise in crime in some areas, Gromer, is because of another issue we're working on. And that's what's happening in Harris County and some other counties where in Harris County, they have these easy bail policies that Beto supports, which is cashless bail, that is letting dangerous criminals, such as people recently convicted of murder last year, back out on the streets now who killed a police officer recently in Houston, Texas.
Governor, take 15 seconds to answer this again. You've been governor for 7 years. Crime is up. Do you bear any responsibility for that?
So let me again explain what happened.
Crime in the state of Texas is because of you, Abbott. Yes, it is. Crime in Texas is because of you, Greg Abbott.
In Austin, after they defunded the police, the year after that, they had the highest number of murders ever. In Harris County, where they have this easy bail policy, in the past couple of years, there have been hundreds of people killed by people let out on bail who had been previously arrested for murder.
Thank you, Governor. Our next topic comes from one of our viewers. Actually, Britt has more on that.
Yes, Grover, thank you so much. Candidates, I have our first viewer question for you. And just so you know, we use this as a jumping off point to then craft our own question for you. So here is Douglas Tyler out of Hayes County with his question. Douglas.
Governor, what steps would you take to ensure that there is not another ERCOT failure like we had during the winter of 2021? How would you increase the generation capacity and reliability? Is it time for Texas to face reality and join the rest of the country in the cooperative grid system?
Okay, clearly Douglas asked a lot of questions about the grid. Many Texans have similar questions, so we're going to break them down one by one. And for that, I will send it back over to my colleague, Steve.
Thank you, Britt. And I want to thank Douglas for that question. And Governor Abbott, first for you. Following the outages in February of 2021, the legislature passed 18 different pieces of legislation aimed at improving the grid. An energy expert, Ed Hers from the University of Houston, said last month, quote, "No question the grid..."
Okay, I'm just going to stop this video now. This video showed that Abbott's just a lying piece of crap. And crime in Texas is because of him. You vote for Abbott, then you vote for people going in graves. See you next time.